I'm gonna do something a little different because I almost exclusively usually review newer stuff on here, more recent movies, recent shows, recent games. Not this time. This time, I'm doing a retro recommend slash review for an entire franchise.
All right.
And that franchise is made up of, let's see, one, two, three, about 5 games and an anime.
All right.
And it is called
Danganronpa.
Danganronpa. Now, Nick, our mutual friend Christina, had tried to get me into this for a long time. She recommended it to me quite a bit because she thought I would like it. And I can't believe I slept on it for so long because I really did. I actually finally got around to playing the first game in the series a few years ago during the pandemic, actually, because it was perfect for that at the time. And I fell in love with it. The Danganronpa series is, at its core, a mostly visual novel series. These games are visual novels more than they are anything else. About a bunch of high school students that get forced into a killing game by an evil teddy bear, basically. Think Hunger Games meets Saw if Jigsaw was like an evil Bugs Bunny type character, because
Okay.
the evil teddy bear,
Monokuma.
Monokuma, named for his black and white aesthetic, is the headmaster of these killing games across the entire franchise, basically. And he is a fourth wall breaking, physics defying cartoon character. One of those types of villains. One of my favorites, actually. He falls in line with characters like Bugs Bunny, the Genie, the villain from Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I love those types. That is what the series is at its core. Each game is basically just a bunch of students trying to survive a killing game. But the overall lore of the entire franchise is actually about an all-out war between hope and despair, which is basically their versions of light and darkness.
Okay.
It's very anime, but it's also very Saw, and here's why. Because what happens in these games is somebody will kill somebody, and then when 3 people find the body, an announcement happens, and then an investigation starts. And during the investigation, you go around examining all the clues, talking to people, examining the body and stuff, and you get these different truth bullets that you can add to your, arsenal. And then what happens is a class trial where you have a basically courtroom argument, but it's parliament style, where they're all standing in a circle and debating back and forth about the clues that they found, trying to determine who performed the killing. Because how you get out of this killing game is you have to kill someone else and get away with it. So what happens is, if everybody successfully determines who murdered someone else, then that person will be punished. And the way that they get punished is in some kind of like Saw-esque execution style. For example, in the first game, one of the people to get punished is someone whose ultimate talent is that they're a really good baseball star. So their punishment is they get tied up to a post and pelted to death with 1,000 baseballs hitting them at high speed out of one of those baseball shooting cannons, with the fatal blow being to the face at the end. But it's not as violent as you might think it is, because the whole thing is done in this like really over-the-top, cartoony, almost comedic art style that it's their own unique style that they call psychopop. Which is the absolute perfect name for it. Yeah, it's really fucked up because of how goofy it is. The goofiness makes it more disturbing in a way. It's like a weird juxtaposition. It's like how Little Nightmares is adorable yet horrifying at the same time. So there's the first game in the series that has a bunch of students trapped in a high school basically going through this, and yeah, you go around during the class trials. This is where the actual gameplay comes in, where it's not a visual novel. During the debates, you have to use the clues that you have that are truth bullets to shoot holes in people's arguments. Like the words will be text on screen, and a word will show up orange, and if you have a word in your arsenal that counters their argument, you shoot that word at theirs and object to their argument, and you're like, no, wait, I have evidence that what you're saying is bullshit. Here's what actually happened, you know? It's not a choice-based thing. It's not like who dies depends on your choices. It's scripted. Like this, every time you play, the same people are going to die every time. If you fail the class trial, it's a game over. Because what happens is, if they guess the wrong person, then the person who did the killing actually goes free and everyone else gets executed. Which canonically doesn't happen. The class trials, they always guess the right one or the game doesn't end, you know? Like, that's basically, the class trials are the boss battle of the end of every chapter, so to speak.
Fair enough.
And speaking of boss battles, they do actually have them. Something called bullet time battle, where an enemy or one of the other classmates will start arguing with you one-on-one, and a little rhythm game pops up where you have to hit the buttons in the right time to gather targets, and you have to switch between like X, triangle, and square, because you're trying to build up a combo, reload your ammo, and hit the targets, and each one's a different button, and you have to stay on the rhythm while you're doing it. So it's like very high tension stuff. But I absolutely love it. The game is like literally 80% reading dialogue, but it's like a really, really good fucked up story. So but that's what visual novels are. Visual novels are like almost 100% dialogue. It's like Persona, but without the RPG elements, you know. But it's like if they took out the RPG, it's like if they took Persona, took out the Final Fantasy stuff and replaced it with Ace Attorney stuff, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, and then added a saw filter over the whole thing. Yeah, because it is really. Yeah, it's great. So there's the first game, Trigger Happy Havoc, and then there's an in-between game, kind of their like chain of memories, if you will, called Ultra Despair Girls, where you play as the sister of the protagonist of the first game, but it actually takes place in a city-wide killing game where everyone's wearing these bracelets where if they try to escape from the city, they'll blow up, and they're running around fighting off a bunch of Monokumas. It's like a slaughter. It's like basically Resident Evil if the zombies were replaced with Monokumas, is what it is. And that's how it plays, too. It's like a survival horror game in third person. And you even have a hacking gun that shoots the Monokumas. It's the only game in the entire series that plays like that, because then Danganronpa 2 goes right back to the visual novel thing. Another 16 students trapped in a killing game, but this time instead of a school, it's on an island. And then there's an anime called Danganronpa 3, The End of Hope's Peak. It has two arcs, the Despair arc and the Future arc. The Despair arc serves as a prequel to the entire series, shows you how this whole thing started and why. And the Future arc wraps up the story of this timeline. Wraps up everything. It gives you one last killing game in anime form this time, and then wraps a nice little bow on the whole series. And then they put out one more game called Danganronpa V3, but this one takes place in an alternate reality where Danganronpa is fiction, like our reality, but they live such peaceful lives that they were so intrigued by this series that they made it into a reality TV show that people actually agree to be on, knowing that they're going to die, possibly, if they're on it, but they sign a contract, agree to be on it, and then willingly have their memories wiped and their personalities replaced with fake characters for the sake of the reality show, in which, since their memories have been wiped, it all feels real to them, and it is real, but they have no memory of agreeing to this because of their memories being wiped. Yeah, so it's like really fucked up. But that game ties a nice little bow on the entire series. The anime ties a bow on the Danganronpa main timeline, and then the final game they put out ties a nice bow on the series as a whole. And then there's a side game called Danganronpa Summer Camp S that's like a Mario Party style game that brings all the characters from all the games together. And it has like little RPG battles and stuff. It's okay, but it gets like really tedious and grindy after a while. So I don't recommend that one. But the rest of the series, fucking solid, basically. And the way that the people pull off some of these murders is some of the most convoluted, over-the-top anime shit I've ever heard in my life. It is so absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm talking about stuff like people being accomplice to other people being murderers and then faking their own death so that they can go and kill someone else while people are investigating other stuff, and then they themselves being killed by the person who they were being an accomplice to, well, the whole time they set the whole thing up to frame someone else whose unconscious body they put in a robot costume. It's absolutely insane. There's a case in one of the games where one of the characters basically unalives themselves with poison and then sets the whole thing up to look like a locked room mystery. Huh. It is insane, and the way that the clues you have to put together, the logic that they have to come to figure this out is, like, they definitely stretch credulity sometimes, I'll put it that way. But it is so fun. Just know, though, these are Japanese games that were made in the early 2010s, so there is some dated material in there. There is an assload of fan service that makes me super uncomfortable. I do not like it. And some, some body shaming and shit like that in there too. Like one of the fatter characters in one scene, when he starts to run away, the game literally goes thump, 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 thump. So it's just stupid shit like that.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And yeah, the game is like very up its own ass with the fourth wall breaking meta stuff too. So I think it's very tongue in cheek, like it knows what it is, and it wears that on its sleeve. Like, it's not ashamed of what it is. So respect, I guess. But yeah, Danganronpa, visual novel murder mystery series with some. There is gameplay. It's not all reading. You actually walk around and hang out and talk to the other students and build relationships with them and shit too. And then during the class trials, there's mini games you have to play in order to win each argument and stuff like that. But the rest of the game is, yes, all dialogue. But I love it. I absolutely love it. It's one of the most. If you thought the lore of Kingdom Hearts and Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil was convoluted, but you like that kind of thing, then you'll love how convoluted Danganronpa lore is too. That's all I can say. Okay. If you're into those three franchises, you'd probably be into Danganronpa. This clip was brought to you by The Overcast, the official podcast of Oversoul Gaming, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all your favorite podcast platforms.